County. This gentleman's, after this big fire, this gentleman's soil tested for arsenic at 6,430 times over permissible limits. And his water tested for arsenic 2,600 times over the limit and 44 times over the limit for benzene. How do you control a fire? Spills of toxic chemicals are very frequent, and that presents immediate groundwater contamination, surface contamination, soil contamination. Air pollution. The residents of Dish, Texas were having so many health issues that they actually commissioned a company to come in and test. And this company, Wolf Eagle Environmental, found many different chemicals above limits in their air samples. On your handouts, I list one of the handouts is about the empirical evidence. I'm not going to go through all of it. I just want to bring your attention to that, evidence of contamination. One thing I do want to bring up is a paper by veterinarian Michelle Bamberger and Cornell professor Robert Oswald, Impacts of Gas Drilling on Animal and Human Health, and this is a quote from the paper. Documentation, evidence of contamination.
Second page.
So this, we call this the Bamberger-Oswald study. This is a quote. Documentation of cases in 6 states strongly implicates exposure to gas drilling operations and serious health effects on humans, companion animals, livestock, horses, and wildlife. So it's getting published. This is a problem. And the other thing I want to mention, while this is technically not empirical evidence, I think every farmer in our region needs to know about this. The Canadian National Farmers Union has officially asked for a moratorium on hydraulic fracturing in Canada. And something that's really disturbing, in the press release, it says, not many of these stories get made public because the oil and gas companies usually force farmers to sign confidentiality agreements in return for replacement of their water wells. It's in the press release from the Canadian National Farmers Union. I think we need to know that. When I talk briefly about the economy, when we're talking about our economy, it is so important to be sensitive to the economic needs of our farmers and our residents in our region. It is vital to understand how this is actually playing out in other states. Not all landowners make money off of this, and even the ones that do are not necessarily prepared for the destruction and the health effects from all of these chemicals. Here's a quote from a Vanity Fair article, A Colossal Fracking Mess. Quote, despite making more than $1 million in royalties from drilling on his 105-acre farm, Wayne Smith, a farmer in Clearville, Pennsylvania, wishes he'd never signed a lease. Some of his livestock mysteriously dropped dead after having motor skill breakdowns. A veterinarian said the deaths could be attributed to arsenic, high levels of which were found in water on Smith's property. Smith also worries about health problems he has developed, such as frequent headaches, abscessed teeth, and other mouth problems. This is really serious. Thank you, Lynn.
I do too, yep.
Okay, thank you. All right. You can also see in the economic damage part about people's property values getting just wiped out. This does not work for everybody. Wetzel County, West Virginia is still the highest unemployment in the state in spite of drilling. And this brings me to my point. We need jobs in Southern Illinois. That is a given. Jobs which destroy our property values and our literal life resources. We may need to take a second look at that. We can build our economy here without these kinds of permanent sacrifices. We also need to consider our future here. In Bradford and Butler counties, Pennsylvania, residents are just giving up and trying to get out. Carl Stiles of Bradford County, who had to abandon his home, quote, between the drill site and our house, there are so many people in Sugar Run who have water buffaloes. That's how they get their replacement water when their water wells go bad. Who have water buffaloes, and I have a family up a mile away, and he has 2 little kids, and they have the same symptoms as me. Pennsylvania is going to be a wasteland. It's going to be so contaminated, no one is going to live there. I think that speaks for itself. Another point that really hits home with me is that this entire process is completely undemocratic. A company, government, whomever at this point has the right to do something which stands to ruin my property value, my drinking water, my air quality, my quality of life without my consent. If this is not an invasion of privacy, I don't know what is. A well could start a mile away from me, come under my house, contaminate my water, and I have no means of stopping it. This keeps me up at night. This horrifies me. Now I want to come full circle back to Pennsylvania farmer Ron Gula. He brought up the issue of the food chain. He said since the water, the soil, and the air are becoming contaminated, that these chemicals are making their way into crops and into animals. This presents a much more widespread health risk. Also, this is how companies are getting away with it. Drillers come in, contaminate residents' well water, soil, surface water, air, etc., destroy their property values, and then the drillers have the residents economically backed into a corner. Range Resources offered Ron a lot of money to stay quiet. I'm not at liberty to say how much, but I actually had to pause for 2 seconds and say, no, I wouldn't take it. It was a lot of money. Ron declined it and instead chose to speak out about what is happening in Pennsylvania. Also, Ron said many farmers are caught up in lawsuits and cannot talk about their experiences. And also I mentioned the Canadian National Farmers Union press release about signing gag orders in order to get replacement for water. So I think it's important to understand from the folks on the ground, this is how it works. The idea of a ban or a moratorium is not new. France, Bulgaria, and many New York State municipalities have outright banned it. South Africa, Quebec, and New York State have imposed moratoriums. We would not be the first region to call for a stop to this. One last aspect we need to at least be aware of is something called the Gillette syndrome. It has nothing to do with shaving, but rather what happens to local populations as you get workers coming in. Pennsylvania dairy farmer Carol French said she's actually afraid to go out and drive due to the number of fatalities of residents involving frac trucks. Also, roads can get destroyed to the point of being unsafe. And crime rates and, unfortunately, sexual assaults have tended to rise in communities home to drilling activities. So we have to understand how this is going to affect us socially as well as our water and our air and our soil. So if that didn't get you worried, it worries me. This should. I'd like to play a short clip of Pennsylvania farmers Terry Greenwood, and then we'll just start with Ron Gula. And Ron's the one I spoke with on the phone, just for like a few minutes, and then we'll stop it, and then we'll discuss what we're going to do next.
All right.
While that's loading, I got a very good suggestion to tell you what a water buffalo is. I kind of glazed over it. That's how families get the replacement water for their water wells. This gentleman gave me a great explanation. I don't remember every word he said, but it's what he said was what the Army uses to bring water to people.
It's a portable water tank on 2 wheels that holds a few hundred gallons of water that they put in there from some other source.
Yeah, so that's what people have to use instead of their own water wells.
Terry has beef cattle and farms in Washington County, Pennsylvania. We were just talking about collecting old farmhouses and restoring them.
Come on, please load.
Let's not worry about it. That's okay. Let's use the time. Okay. So basically, what you can go to the website under For Farmers and listen to these guys. I highly recommend you do that. Terry lost a lot of cattle from this. His water got contaminated. Ron talks about his farm getting destroyed. Ron talks about that he was lied to. The company said they weren't going to do horizontal drilling, and they did.